Every truck on the road today is a feat of engineering. But the growing demand for specialized trucks has pushed the business of heavy hauling to new extremes. Vehicles are now bigger, more powerful, and carrying heavier loads than ever before. But which truck is the ultimate? Which is the fastest?
Kids would look at it like, wow, Dad drives a transformer.
Which is the best over tough terrain? And which can carry the most?
It's like driving a two-story house, basically.
In our search for engineering excellence, we've scoured the toughest workplaces on the planet. Testing, analyzing, rating, to establish the best of the best. The world's toughest truck. From the US to Australia, from Germany to Scotland to South Africa, we picked 5 trucks that push engineering to the extreme. They grip and flip to ship their loads to wherever they're needed.
These are the big boys. They're not always the prettiest or the most sleek, but they are the most powerful things on wheels.
Our contenders: the Mack Titan, the big rig of choice for Australian truckers in logging, mining and livestock hauling. The R730, Northern Europe's king of the road, with specs to suit the extremes of temperature and terrain. The M3 amphibious rig, the British Army vehicle that's at least half transformer. The T282C, the mining truck that's so big it has its own staircase. And South Africa's Marauder, the armoured beast designed to withstand anti-tank mines. Five machines, 5 engineering marvels. Now, 5 tests to tell us which is the world's toughest truck. For our first category, we're measuring speed.
All of these trucks are the best at what they do. Get their load from A to B. The challenge is to build one that's big enough, strong enough, powerful enough, and fast enough.
At 5, the T282C. It's not a road vehicle and weighs 237 tons when empty, but it's still good for 64 kilometers an hour.
Now that doesn't sound particularly fast, but that's at maximum capacity. Try dumping 300 tons on any other vehicle and see how fast it goes.
At 4 is the R730 with a very solid 88 kilometers per hour.
And that's no matter what the load is or how steep the road is. That's why they call it the road flattener.
At 3, the Titan. 100 kilometers an hour is its top speed on the flat.
And I've actually overtaken one in Australia. And you drive past it and it just keeps going and going. These things are absolutely massive.
At 2, the Marauder. No matter what the terrain is, it can reach 120 kilometers per hour.
Okay, so it's not exactly a sports car, but if your main objective is to get to your destination, definitely in one piece, this is your best choice.
But our winner steals this category by doing something the others can't. On road, it manages 80 kilometers an hour. But when you run out of tarmac and there's a river in the way, the M3 amphibious rig will just keep going. It wins because it can do 14 kilometers per hour on water.
Yes, it's a truck, but it's also a ferry and a bridge. It's like a grown-up version of a transformer toy.
The best army in the world can't win a battle unless it can get to the battlefield. When the call comes, the M3 amphibious vehicle must deploy correctly and quickly, no matter what the conditions, or risk leaving hundreds of men and machines stranded. Gordon Barracks, Hamelin, Germany. Headquarters of the British Army's 28th Engineer Regiment.
To be part of this squadron is a privilege because this is the only regiment that holds this equipment.
Today, Warrant Officer Aaron Preece is putting 2 teams and 2 M3s through a rigorous drill. They have 4 hours to get it done.
The aim of the training today is to get the vehicles into the water, get them to join together to make a ferry, and then to cross a vehicle from the home bank to the far bank successfully.
If they get through, they'll then be certified as ready for deployment. The next time they do this, it might be in a combat situation, where lives depend on this extraordinary truck getting through. The M3 first came into service in 1996. Each one is 3 times the length of a car, but 28 times the weight. The M3 can carry a 62-ton Challenger tank. And though it's not pretty, it's pretty much unique.
The M3, in essence, is a truck. It's a truck that can go into the water.
That makes Alistair Laidlaw both a mechanic and a marine engineer. He's spent months trying to teach the trainees what he knows. Now it's up to them to prove that they've mastered what they've learnt. Their challenge? To deploy, hold station, and then ferry a 14-ton transport truck from one riverbank to the other.
We have a few concerns for the training. There's been a lot of rainfall, so the wet gap is bigger than we anticipated.
Heavy rains have doubled the river's normal size. It's running at 3.5 meters per second. Once in the water, the M3s must turn to face the current or risk capsizing as they go to extend their aluminium pontoons. The pontoons give the vehicle stability and extra deck space. Then comes the switch from truck to boat.
When the M3 hits the water, the driver disconnects the drive from the gearbox, and he would then signal to the pilot. The pilot will then flick it over to water control.
The engine's power is diverted from the wheels to pump jets, called SPJs.
It sucks water in through the grilled area here, and it pumps it out through the recess here. There's one at the front, and there's one at the rear.
The M3's 2 SPJs take in water through a system of propellers, which speed up the flow. They then push it back out through directional nozzles. They provide both propulsion and steering. A second M3 hits the water. To complete the task, both must work together. Before the M3 pilots are entrusted with any kind of cargo, they must show that they can hold a position in the current.
Okay, listening pilots! Second midstream!
They'll now join together and form a ferry, big enough to carry a 14-ton truck.
The slightest touch of another rig onto the other one will send you off the centre line, but it's up to the pilots to correct and be able to adjust according to the current.
And you've got a lot to look out for. You're watching the commander. The job that he wants you to do, you're trying to make that happen as quick as possible. But you've got to think of the speed of the current.
As the 2 vehicles come together, the crew locks them in place with heavy steel bolts. The maneuver requires agility and speed. They can't afford to get it wrong, and they can't afford to take their time.
During the learning phase, hand-eye coordination plays a massive game in it. If you're not good at that, you're not really good at piloting.
As with any ferry, the M3s must drop ramps to load.
The crewmen are now unlocking the ramp. They're going to do the outer ramps first. They're going to position that to the side of the pontoon, and then the centre ramp will be distributed.
The M3 uses its own onboard crane to manoeuvre it into place.
Right, start, take it easy.
When the river is swollen and the bank's been breached, this is one of the trickiest parts of the job.
They're now going to push onto the home bank. Because of the flooded area, we're going to see how far they can come in.
The pilots must use all their training and skill to get their cargo across the river. Get it wrong, drift out of position, and both truck and crew could find themselves dumped in the water. There are only a handful of M3s in the world, and a small number of men who really know how to use them. Together, they do a job that no other unit can do.
I think the best part is training the new guys coming through and seeing how skills learned by ourselves and the knowledge is passed on to the new breed and the future of amphibious operations.
Right, just drop back a little bit. Okay, well done, pilots.
Training complete. Machines and men are now ready for the real deal. Wherever, whenever it may be.
Kids would look at it like, wow, Dad drives a transformer. Yeah, it is pretty cool.
What's that? There's no bridge here. Doesn't matter. We drove here in a truck which transforms into a bridge.
Speeding into action on land and water, the M3 wins this round. But will it still be in front after the next round? We're testing, analysing and rating the world's toughest trucks. 5 marvels of engineering, but which is the ultimate? The record-breaking road train, the Titan. The amphibious M3, deployed by the British Army. Or is it the R730, built to handle the toughest roads? The South African Marauder is a strong challenger, with its ability to survive anti-tank mines. But what about the big beast of the mining industry, the T282C? Thanks to its ability in water, the M3 is in the lead. But will it still be after the next round? It's time to see how much grunt our trucks have. We're talking about their power-to-weight ratio.
Any big machine can have sheer power, but the aim of the game is to put the most powerful engine into the smallest package.
Our 5th place megatruck is the M3, with a rating of 11.61 kilowatts per tonne. That's 26 tonnes sharing 405 horsepower.
When it's on land, that power is going into the wheels. But when it's on water, that power goes straight to the pump jets, which steer it and propel it forward.
In 4th place, it's our mining truck, with almost 12 kilowatts per tonne. Insane power, matched by equally incredible tonnage.
At this point, it's got more in common with a freight train than any other truck.
In 3rd, the Marauder, with a figure of 18.6 kilowatts per tonne.
It's not carrying very many people, but its biggest weight is its own armour.
2nd place goes to the Titan. Its 16-litre engine almost doubles the score again, to 34.
Hook that cab up to an 80-metre-long road train and it may look as if it's underpowered. But with 685 horsepower pulling it along those desert roads, it's not going to stop for anything.
But at number 1, with a V8 engine cast from compacted graphite and a power-to-weight ratio of 65.5 kilowatts per tonne, it's the R730.
This is pretty much the same power as a Formula One race car. Only in this situation, it has to work a lot harder, it's got to do that for a lot longer, and it hasn't got the luxury of frequent pit stops.
In filthy conditions, with the promise of more blizzards still to come, steamrolling its way south through Scotland, the world's most powerful truck. At its wheel, veteran trucker Brian Douglas.
Just awesome. It's unbelievable, the torque and the power of it.
Just 2 days from now, the cargo he's carrying must be 1,600 kilometres away in the south of France. That's no matter what the road or weather throws at him. His company's reputation is at stake because his boss has guaranteed delivery.
If the car goes late, we're all in a lot of problems because normally what we're moving is highly sensitive or highly fragile, urgent, so we have to be on time.
There's only one truck that they know will enable them to keep their promise. Born out of Scandinavian design expertise, it began its journey in this factory. In Stockholm, Sweden, with a group of engineers focused on a single goal, delivering more power without adding weight. For them, it's all about the engine. Get that right, and you have a world-beating machine.
You can move mountains with this truck.
Mikael Bjorkstrand heads the team. Throughout his career, he's seen engines getting bigger and bigger.
We have developed engine for many years, and one of our most famous engine is the V8 engine.
But what sits inside the R730 isn't just any old V8. Yes, it delivers 730 horsepower, and that's more than any other truck of this size. But here, the classic design is reimagined in a way that promises to revolutionize how engines are made. Conventional engines are made from cast iron. It's been that way for over a century. But this is a new material. Compacted graphite iron. It makes this engine a third lighter and twice as long-lasting. This V8 is also engineered to a new level of precision. A series of minute measurements ensures that each dimension is accurate to 1/1,000,000th of a meter. Alongside these state-of-the-art technological advances, the core design is still based on some tried and tested principles.
The reason why you're using V8 engines instead of inline 6 engines is that you get a smoother dynamics in the driveline.
Putting the engine cylinders at that 90-degree angle reduces vibration, in turn improving durability and allowing for more power to be pumped out of the engine. That's why they are found in aeroplanes, racing cars, and this truck.
It's important for our customer to have an engine with high power output, so you will not lose any race with this truck.
But what really matters to a driver like Brian, grinding his way south, is what the R730 does with all its power.
It's very easy to talk about horsepower, but one thing that not everyone knows is that the torque is the most important.
Put simply, torque is turning force. On a racing car, that translates into turning the wheels as quickly as possible. But on the R730, it's different. If you've ever been stuck behind a truck trying to crawl its way up a hill, you can be sure that truck wasn't one of these. As with all vehicles of this type, its top speed is restricted. But its incredibly high torque means that it can maintain that speed even on the steepest roads, even with its maximum load. And to Brian, that road flattening capability is invaluable.
It helps greatly, especially if you've got quite a heavy load and you're coming like a 25-kilometre climb in Spain or Italy. I mean, the vehicle's effortless.
Brian is through the worst of the British weather and still ahead of schedule. Now it's on to mainland Europe, where other challenges await.
Nothing is a problem over the Alps, over the Ardennes. She eats everything.
Any truck can be impressive going down a hill. This one, however, has the same performance going back up again.
We're testing, analysing and rating the world's toughest trucks. So far, the R730 and the Marauder are leading the way. But that could all change, because next up, it's gradient. Which machine can climb the steepest slope?
The reason we actually have stuff is because some trucks actually hauled it to where we are. If we had to go out and get it ourselves, most of us would probably take a look at the first hill and think, no thanks.
At 5, the T282C, which can scale a 12% gradient. That's roughly 1 metre up for every 8 along.
As well as going up and down hills all day, it's carrying so much mass, it's the same as giving 4,500 people a piggyback.
At 4, the Titan. Considering all the weight it's pulling, its ability to climb a 20% gradient is pretty impressive.
Most conventional trains can't even handle gradients of 3%, but the Mack Titan can handle some seriously steep hills.
At 3, it's the R730. It can tackle a 35% slope, while still trucking on at top speed.
So for each 3 you go along, you're going up 1. Any gradient bigger than that, it's less of a steep road and more of a gentle cliff.
At 2, the amphibious M3. It can handle a 60% gradient in either direction.
Most vehicles can go down a slope into the river. It can then carry on and power up and out the other side.
So in first place, like the M3, it can climb a 60% gradient, but it can also do it while tilting sideways without rolling over or losing momentum. It's the Marauder.
So for every 10 metres it goes along, it can go 6 metres up. This thing can climb mountains, and it can do it all day.
The Marauder is built to carry a dozen troops into combat, to get them out fast when the time comes, and to keep them from harm, no matter what firepower the enemy brings.
The mission of the Marauder is to keep people safe, get them from A to B, protected against bullets and blasts. Simple as that.
This truck is the brainchild of a team based in Johannesburg and led by John Craig. Originally trained in aircraft design, he spent the last 3 decades in the defense industry. And while the engineers at this factory work to hand-build 12 new trucks before the end of the month, he knows that every one must be capable of stopping a bullet or surviving a mine blast. That's why he'll see each one off the production line.
If we fail in our mission, if we don't get the design and the build quality right, people die. So this is deadly serious.
These machines need to be both powerful and maneuverable. Most of all, they need to be very, very rugged. No Marauder leaves without proving that it won't fail on the battlefield. It's now this one's turn to face the manufacturer's testing ground. An assault course purpose-built for trucks. The name of the game is to test the truck to its limits. And those limits are pretty high. John Craig's team set out to build a vehicle that would handle easily.
It's fully automatic, it has power steering, it's as easy to drive as an MPV or a big 4x4 SUV.
Not bad for a machine that weighs more than a double-decker bus and packs a 300 horsepower engine.
And it actually shrinks around you. You, after a while, forget that it's such a large vehicle.
To be certified battlefield ready, the Marauder must be able to maintain speed through water 1 meter deep. Then prove that its suspension can handle any obstacle. And that 60% gradient? It looks like this. The Marauder has a gas tank big enough to get it from London to Paris and back again without refueling. It's happy to off-road at 120 kilometers per hour. And if it hits a rock or the tires are shot out, it'll drive a guaranteed 50 kilometers with 4 flats. But there's still one big test, tougher than all the others, which this vehicle has to pass. the biggest threat to any modern military truck is an improvised explosive device, or IED, detonated under the vehicle. When a truck has a conventional flat underside, it absorbs the full force of any explosion.
If you have a flat hull, it's like putting your hand out to the wind. That's a very high drag.
But the Marauder has a different shape, a V shape, like the hull of a boat.
If you put a V-shaped hand to the wind, there's a lot less drag, and it's the same with the blast. There's a lot of energy coming from below, and quite simply put, a V-shape allows a lot of that blast energy to roll up the sides of the vehicle and not impart an acceleration directly into the flat floor of the vehicle.
Add to that a uniquely formulated top-secret system of armor plating, and you get a machine that can take this. Capable of surviving a blast of 15 kilograms of TNT under any wheel, and a 50-kilogram blast from the side. The Marauder will keep everyone in it safe from harm.
Equipment can be repaired, human life can't be replaced.
Now John Craig will send this Marauder out, firmly believing that no matter how hostile the environment, no matter what threat it encounters, it will do its job.
This is an absolutely awesome vehicle. It's got real personality. There's no way to describe it, you have to experience it.
There are very few vehicles where if you accidentally park on 15 kilos of TNT that then explodes, you can then continue to drive off. This vehicle, it transcends bulletproof.
Three categories down, 2 to go. Thanks to its ability to climb gradients that others can only dream of, the Marauder is currently ahead of the pack. But how well will it compare in our next category? Length.
If you're a heavy hauler, you're always looking for ways to get more on board. One way to do it? Just stretch it all out behind you.
In 5th place, it's the Marauder. At just over 6 meters long, it's minute compared to its rivals.
It's designed to carry people through the most hostile of urban environments. In this situation, length would be a disadvantage.
4th place goes to the M3, with a length of 13.3 meters.
So on their own, these vehicles are pretty long. But remember, they can link up with other M3s and form a bridge.
3rd is the T282C. 15.69 meters hardly does justice to this juggernaut.
It's not just 15 meters long. You need to remember its height is almost that again. This is a truck that's nearly 3 stories tall.
In 2nd, reaching lengths of up to 35 meters, it's the R730.
The biggest limiting factor on a truck like this is the actual road size and what you're allowed to drive on it.
But in 1st place, with a length of 53 meters when it's pulling a standard 3 trailers, patrolling Australia's dusty highways, it's the Titan. The most powerful, most advanced road train ever built. It even holds the record for the world's longest road train.
1.4 kilometres. Put that in another way, that's 113 trailers.
It used to be that driving cattle meant horses and ropes and long weeks on the trail. That was before the Titan came along. Today, Mick Pattle has just 14 hours to shift this entire herd of 132 cattle, 1,400 kilometres across the outback. He's only got 3 trailers, not 113, but this is a vehicle packed with the tech he needs.
These trailers are capable of handling 10 tonne a deck, it's 20 tonne per trailer. So we've got the biggest that you can get on the road at the present moment.
Mick's been doing this all his adult life. He learnt the business from his father. He knows just how tough long-distance trucking can be.
The cabins used to be a lot narrower than this, and we used to joke about how when you're driving some of these trucks you get sunburned on both arms.
It's demanding physically and mentally. And the thought of having to handle this kind of bulk and this much power for hour after hour against a deadline should be daunting. With a conventional truck, the most challenging moment is always a gear change. It's a feat of strength and split-second timing. And if it goes wrong, if there's a sudden lurch or stall, a driver could quickly lose control, with disastrous results.
When you're going up a hill and you've got to change down and you just don't time it right and you miss it, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble.
But with the Titan, it's different. The team which builds it in this Brisbane factory has come up with a way of removing the guesswork and the labour from the gear change.
The M-Drive is basically an automated manual gearbox. What it does, it talks to the engine so it can do the perfect gear change every single time. So it's easier to operate, but it's going to keep the engine at its sweet spot.
The controls are fly-by-wire. There's no mechanical link between the gears and the driver's cab. Instead, a battery of sensors monitors how much work the engine is doing, and, in full automatic mode, all the gear changes are carried out by computer.
This truck does not miss gears. You know, your left hand's not chasing a gear stick around the cab all day, and you feel at the end of the day you haven't worked. You're just gone for the drive.
This isn't just better for the driver, it's better for his wallet and the environment. Its systems are tuned to squeeze that extra kilometre from every litre of fuel. Not just because it saves money, but because the nearest gas station is hundreds of kilometres away. The Titan's impressive 3,000-kilometre range isn't only down to its massive fuel tank, although it's 40 times bigger than what you'd find on the average car. It's also due to a piece of innovation, which draws on an unlikely natural resource.
It's a urea solution that's used to burn off the carbon in the exhaust system.
Urea. Chemically speaking, that's urine. A separate tankful regularly topped up, then introduced into the exhaust. It prevents the buildup of carbon deposits, meaning the engine runs smoother, lasts longer, and emits fewer toxic fumes. The clock is ticking, so Mick hits the road again.
This truck will make a bad driver look good.
The Titan's combination of power, smart technology and sheer length makes it a world beater.
I believe that this would be, without doubt, the best truck that I've ever driven in my entire driving career.
This really is a road train. It's the size of a train driving down a road.
With 4 out of 5 tests completed, the R730 and the Titan are bumper to bumper. There's only one category still to come. Weight. Then we can determine which is the world's toughest truck. We're testing, analysing and rating the world's toughest trucks. With the R730 and the Titan tying for the lead, it's time for the decider. Our final category is weight. Which of our monsters weighs the most with a full load?
Weight is the gold standard for heavy haulers. The bigger the load they can carry, the better it is.
In 5th place, it's the South African Marauder. Carrying a full complement of 12 troops, it weighs in at just over 16 tonnes.
Yes, at 16.5 tonnes, it's a relative lightweight, but do not underestimate it. It's easily the toughest of the bunch.
In 4th, the M3, with a loaded weight of 96 tonnes.
Its mass is 26 tonnes to start with. On top of that, it can carry another 63 tonnes. And it does all of this, well, not just while on the road, but also while in the water without sinking.
In third, the R730. The cab alone weighs almost 10 tons, and with a full trailer, it tips the scales at 110.
So effectively, it can pull itself plus 10 identical cabs.
In second place, the Titan. 15 tons of cab, but sitting on a trailer, or 3, and that can go as high as 245 tons.
They call it a road train, but it could actually carry the equivalent of a small passenger train.
But thundering ahead, carrying nearly 3 times as much as a Titan at full steam, with a total combined load of 600 tons, it's the T282C.
The fact is, this truck could carry 2 747s on its back.
This year, the world's mines will produce about 8 billion tons of coal. And when it comes to the trucks that have to carry it all, the idea is straightforward. The bigger the load, the better for business. That's where the T282C comes in. A monster that can carry enough coal to power your household for the next 40 years. It's made here in Newport, Virginia, USA. Today, new trucks are rolling off the production line, and none of them are going to leave without a test drive. Kevin Gildia is the man who'll oversee it all. He knows that with a $5 million price tag attached to each one, they have to deliver every time.
I'm standing in front of a 282C. That's our largest mining truck. It's what they call an ultra-class truck. It has a 360-ton payload. That's the largest payload that's available in the world right now.
When something this big shears a drive shaft or its suspension fails, you can't just call the garage. If it happens in a mine, it's going to cause major delays and cost money. So the buyers need to know that the T282C will keep going, no matter what.
We could be in northern Canada where it gets down to minus 40 degrees for months during the winter, or we can be in a hot and humid environment, but these trucks run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
But with something this big, even getting to the test ground is a challenge. A T282C is way too heavy to travel on any normal road, so it must be taken to site and assembled there.
Well, a lot of planning goes into doing some of these tests because the equipment is so large. It's not like you can just hop in and go. That part of it is a little nerve-wracking. You want to make sure you get it right on the first time.
The aim today is to prove this new truck's maneuverability, suspension and handling with a full 360-ton load.
I would say it's kind of like if you thought about sitting in your house on the second story looking out the window and driving your house around. That would be about what it's like.
Brent Cooper is the test driver tasked with giving one of the world's toughest trucks a seriously tough workout.
He'll guide you on the first set, and I'll move down and guide you on the second set, okay?
Are we all clear to go?
Yeah, I think we're ready.
10-4, here we go.
The heart of the truck is its hybrid power system. A mighty 3,750 horsepower diesel engine drives not the wheels, but a generator. Propulsion comes from an electric motor. Trains, ships and submarines have similar plants for the same reason. When the machine is this big, diesel-electric delivers power, reliability and efficiency that no conventional engine could match.
Ultimately, it's driven by electric motors. And if you ignore the fact that, yes, it's generating its own power, technically, it's the world's biggest golf cart.
The part of the truck that will take the biggest battering, both in this test and in the mine, is the tires. Each 4.5-meter tall tire costs a staggering $60,000.
Hold on here, there'll be a little bump.
That's the price you pay for wanting a tyre which will bear 100-ton weight. It's an integral part of the way the truck handles cornering and braking.
The size is really the challenge. Once you get that under control, it's a very simple vehicle to drive.
Onboard cameras help the driver to see 360 degrees around him.
You have to understand where your tires are in relation to where you're sitting. And you have this large truck that's off to your right, so you have a major blind spot, and you have to figure out how to make turns and how to maneuver the truck.
The final part of the test checks the hydraulic arms, which raise the 282C's body. To successfully dump a load, they must lift a weight equivalent to around 100 adult elephants.
The test went very well. Everything passed as we expected it would.
Which means this truck is now ready to go to work. Dismantled, shipped to its new home and reassembled on site, it will spend the next 2 decades hauling coal.
It's the most efficient, largest payload, most productive truck in the world, and that's why we think it's the best truck.
This machine is mammoth in scale. It looks like a massive house. And it's so tough that the road is likely to collapse before it does.
So, 5 extreme trucks. 5 incredibly diverse feats of engineering. But which one is the ultimate? To find out, we have to consider their weight, speed, length, climbing ability, and power-to-weight output. Here's the final result. Grinding into 5th place is the T282C. In 4th, the amphibious M3. The Marauder clambers into 3rd, whilst the R730 keeps on trucking in 2nd. That means the winner, ferrying cattle, logs and mineral ore across thousands of kilometres of Australian outback, is the Titan. Combining the versatility and speed of a big rig with the massive load-carrying ability of a rail network, it has all the characteristics of the world's toughest truck.
They have cars driving a couple of kilometres ahead of them just to warn other drivers to get out of the way. Because when these things get going, it's not easy to stop.